I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the 5 million, the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Okay. 610B, that was the name date, 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the 2nd floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Up to the top floor, I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building, a lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a 3rd alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows centered below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. 2nd alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got 1 line stretch, fire on the 4th floor, 2nd line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome to Old School. I'm Chief Rick Lasky.
And I'm John Salka.
And we're with you again. John, for a subject matter or whatever, a topic, whatever you want to call it, for this particular podcast, you and I we were just at a location to, we'll remain nameless, okay, to protect the innocent and the guilty, but we dealing in with our consulting, going in sometimes to handle some mediation or help somebody through a grievance or whatever, especially when it comes to people, and people are human beings, they make mistakes, and there's some people that do like I've always said before, there's in my world, there's on accidents and there's on purposes. You know what? On accidents happen. They happen to everybody. On purposes, I have an on purpose scale of 1 to 10. 1, you probably should know better. 10, you need to leave, get your stuff back. But one of the things I think, and you just mentioned it while we were there, is the lack of understanding discipline. And I just said it, and for our listeners, we say this in class, we'll say it here. The very first thing you think of, you see the word discipline, what's everybody think? Punishment. Fire, suspend. That's not discipline. That's not discipline. That is not discipline. Do we say it's not? Yeah. That's part of the process. That's part. The majority, oh my God, the majority of discipline is counseling, talking, changing the behavior.
It's quite a long process.
Could you imagine if discipline meant we were firing everybody, suspending everybody? We'd be out of people to fire service.
I firmly believe in, and we talked about discipline in our 5-alarm leadership book and our 5-alarm leadership program that we do together. I think discipline is a real, it's a real skill. It's a real. It's a real thing in the fire service. In other words, the fire service is no different than people that are delivering boxes or delivering newspapers or building buildings. Whenever you have a group of people together doing something, performing a task or performing a job, if there are people that are sliding or people aren't quite living up to the expectations of everybody else or not performing as well as everybody else, there's got to be some process to get people to boost their performance and get it up to where it needs to be. And that's what the whole disciplinary process is all about. But I think in the fire service, the word discipline and the disciplinary process in the fire service is probably one of the most misunderstood processes in the fire service. Firefighters
Absolutely.
and officers, I think, have a great handle and a great understanding on our tactics and our procedures and strategy and tasks. All those things are a little bit different, and I think there's a pretty good understanding throughout the whole fire service of what those differences are. But when it gets to discipline, I think everybody sort of shies away for a little bit because of that misunderstood concept of it's
an uncomfortable thing. Who wants to handle or delve out discipline or whatever?
Now there are some good. One of my favorite uses of the word discipline is in the phrase self-discipline. And I've worked in lots of companies. I was in Rescue 3, I was in Squad 1, I was in 48 Inch, and I never worked in a bad place. And I'll tell you what, some of the greatest companies in the FDNY and every fire department around the country are places where the firefighters and the company officers have self-discipline, where they know what they're doing, they know what's expected of them, and they do it. They do it time and time again. They do it whether they're being watched, they do it whether it's difficult conditions, they do it whether they feel good or don't feel so good, and that's self-discipline. Well, self-discipline is a wonderful thing, but everybody in the fire service doesn't have quite the same package full of self-discipline that maybe some of your best people do.
No.
And some people need a little rub on the shoulder, maybe once in a while a little kick in the butt, for lack of a better term, to straighten them out and to keep them on a narrow path. And there's a couple of rules you follow. And one of the first ones we talk about a lot is that discipline should be performed, meaning the process at the lowest level. And the lowest level means if you're a company officer and you're witnessing company level firefighters performing or not performing up to snuff, then it should be handled right there at that level. Some departments require reports to be sent down to headquarters about every little lateness, and it's really not helpful to the situation to let everybody else know that Tommy's coming in late.
If
twice.
you got 7 firefighters, I guess you can handle that. You start to get a decent sized department, multiple stations and everything. Really, I don't know how you.
Right.
I'm waiting for what's in the mailbox today. Well, we have 3 more write-ups and 2 more of these, and I'm like, really?
Right.
One
more guy not wearing the right shirt, and 2 more guys coming in 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late.
And you said it before. If that's the case, then we don't need company officers, right? Why don't we just
You know what? I've said that. If headquarters could just look at these things and then send a memo back down. Okay, Fireman Mafina, he came in late. He gets a 6-hour loss of pay. And Fireman Jones, he's the one who was out of uniform. He gets the 2 demerit points. That could just come down from headquarters in an email if you didn't have officers. But the obvious thing is, company officers are the folks that are most closely to company firefighters, to the people on their crew. They should be able to handle that much better.
And in most cases, not everywhere, we know that, but most cases, they're the ones working with the subordinate day in, day out, or in their particular volunteer firehouse, whatever. They see them. They know if this is a chance happening or a singular event or whatever, that's what it is.
Or getting into a bad habit.
Or a bad habit, or now really I got to talk to this person again about this or whatever. And we've talked about the different. It is about correcting or changing the behavior. And I tend to brag about the city of Louisville because I think they have their act together in a lot of things. The Human Resource Department, Melinda Galler was the HR director for a long time. She's one of the assistant city managers. Wonderful. The dream HR director, that's who you want there. She's got a great department. She's mentored, and people have come in behind her and done some great things. But the disciplinary policy in Louisville is written in such a way, before you get to write-ups and what the different violations can be and everything else, so on and so forth, if you read their policy, and we do this a lot in class, it kind of explains where we need to be going. And the whole point of the disciplinary process, I've said before, I've described them as the speed limit signs. Rules and regulations and SOPs are the speed limit signs that the reason we put a speed limit sign here on Route 5 of 45 miles an hour on this curve is because if you do 75, you are going to roll your car into the trees. That's why the signs are here. That's why the rules are here. Otherwise, everybody would be driving helter-skelter. So if I can kind of recite, because I think this is such a cool way to explain it when it comes to disciplinary process, is when you look under the purpose, in the city of Louisville's disciplinary policy, and folks, they'll send it to you. All you got to do is get a hold of HR, they'll send it to you. The city of Louisville, this is the purpose. This is written. This is before you get to anything else besides the signature and the policy number. The city of Louisville believes that each employee wants to provide quality public services by meeting high standards of job performance, back to the performance evaluation and values, vision, and mission thing, all right, and conduct by following established directives, procedures, regulations, and practices. For this reason, all employees are to be treated as responsible adults in the employment relationship. Wow, responsible adults, there's that word, okay, or that phrase. This requires employees to be responsible for the consequences of their decisions and their behavior. You don't have to lay in the weeds to discipline someone, or get. They're going to do it themselves. We have to manage the consequences of their actions, right? It also requires supervisors to be responsible for making employees aware of job requirements, back to the company officers now in particular, and expectations, back to the company officers, and having those talks with their firefighters, and us having talks with our company officers, and for making every effort to define and modify behavior to improve the employee's job performance and conduct. I just love how that's written. It's
and there's
simple.
The bottom line. To improve the employee's job performance. And that's really what the whole disciplinary process is about.
Exactly. And then that's A, and B is even short of that. And we talk about the primary purpose, like we're talking about. The primary purpose of disciplinary action is to correct or prevent the reoccurrence of employee performance or conduct which is detrimental to the quality job performance or the interests of the public, the employee, the city, or other employees. The city's disciplinary policies emphasize the employee's responsibility for the consequences of his own behavior with the focus on communicating expectations for changes in behavior and needed improvement. The change of behavior. So that's the coupons. That's Tommy. Tommy, come here. Look, third time you've been late. I've already talked to you about this. These are the coupons, right? Because they don't matter. These are just, they matter in your life because after you run out of coupons or get out of jail free cards, then we start the official process. But most of it, like you said, is handled at the lowest level.
And most of them get solved at the coupon level. Most of
Yeah.
them get solved at the, hey, Billy, come on, you're making this hard on me now. Let's just end this and let's get back on the ball.
You're
here, okay?
going to force my hand in this? I actually sent an email out once, John, to the whole department going, you know, I asked them, I said, how it was one of these things where I was like, okay, and I was like, how flexible do you want me to be? You know, how serious do you want me to take things? You know, I think this is pretty simple. We need you to act your wage and act like a responsible adult. You company officers need to take care of business, take care of your people. You senior firefighters, right? You talked about the lowest level, the captain. You used to say it. Not that they covered stuff, but you're...
Oh, no.
Half the stuff that went on your fire is like...
You know, and I'm very proud of being a member of the FDNY. And I must tell you, in my 33 years there, in every rank all the way up to battalion chief, I worked with great companies with great people. And senior firefighters were, and I don't want to quite call them the backbone, but they were very close to being the backbone of the company. And a lot of senior firefighters spent 8, 10, 20 years in a company when captains come and went, lieutenants came and went, got promoted, moved on to other companies, and did a great job while we were there. But sometimes some of the longest serving people in a company is a senior firefighter, and they have tremendous influence on the younger firefighters there, even sometimes a little bit more influence than an officer who's actually responsible for stuff. And I, as an officer, I, as a captain, and as a lieutenant, I freely used my senior people and cut them loose and allowed them to make decisions and get some stuff done on the apparatus floor level that I didn't have to get involved in, that I knew was going to be more effective than me maybe going down there and inserting myself into stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. And that's like, you know, sometimes, and we've talked about this as well, is walking in while a captain is coaching and counseling someone and doing an about face and walking out as a chief, because once you insert yourself into the process, guess what? You own it then. Right. And let them do their jobs, right?
And there's no problem with that. And I always said that all the time. As a chief in the 18th Battalion, I was up in the Bronx for a long time, 15, 16 years. And there was stuff that went on there that I found out later, you know, months or even years later. You know, low-level, company-level disciplinary.
Not
you know,
bad stuff.
Nothing terrible, but stuff that a captain or a lieutenant had to handle and had to give somebody a smack on the hand. And you know what? I would find out much later, and I was so thrilled that I didn't have to find out about it while it was happening, because I was just proud that the company officers were able to effectively handle stuff in their own company, in their own little realm there, without any trouble. And I've always made it clear to them, don't leave me out because you think I don't want to be bothered with that, because that's not true at all. If you need help, please call me, and I'd be very happy to come down and help you, give you some advice, tell you, gee, you know what, when I was a captain, here's what I did one time with a guy. And they might say, wow, Chief, I never thought about that. You know what, let me try that again before we bring this any further. So, you know, I don't think any bosses, any chief officers or even company officers want to shy away from that. Certainly it's nothing we're looking forward to. Nobody's looking forward to getting involved in a disciplinary process. But if you have somebody who's not performing, if you have somebody who needs some extra training and to be a little bit safer, to be a little bit more effective, we want to get it done. But I have no problem allowing my company officers to handle their own little area, their own little arena, their own little company. And if they need help, they give me a call, and we try and, you know, provide that as best as possible.
And you said it before, so much of this is handled very nicely, verbally. How about this? Just observing. You're not going to know what's going on, and you're not going to have your finger on the pulse of your shift or your department, you know, your volley department, whatever. If you don't pay attention, if you're hiding behind your desk, if you're in your office, you don't come to drill night, you don't come to meeting night, whatever.
Not making rounds every day that you work.
You're not coming on the floor and checking and watching, because you're going to pick up on things. You're going to notice behaviors. We've said it before. The best of crews will become complacent, and sometimes they'll misstep when you're not out there when they don't see the boss, they don't expect the boss or whatever. You know, it's one of those things. And so much of that is prevented just by. And I think if more company officers took the time to fix something before it became a problem, we wouldn't be talking about discipline as often. How many times you heard me say where I've been sitting with HR people, you know, the HR directors and city managers, and they're going, you know, if our captains or lieutenants, whatever you have, or both, if our captains, lieutenants, if they would just do their jobs, if they would just done their job, we wouldn't even be here right now. We wouldn't even be talking about this. You know, Chief Lasky, you wouldn't even be here right now, because this would have never happened if they had, or they would have been kept at a lower level, because they didn't do their job. If they'd have done their job, we wouldn't even be here.
And it's nothing that you're looking forward to. I've said this
No.
1,000 times before. Nobody's sitting at home wringing their hands saying, gosh, I can't wait to get to work tomorrow to straighten everybody out and make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. Number one, in the fire service, that's not that common. Although, for those of you listening, I mean, I can't imagine that any officer of any rank in the fire service has not had to handle some type of performance problem, some type of situation where somebody needed to be a little direction, or,
Right, right.
corrective action, whatever it might have been. Whether it was, let's walk up to the officer and talk about that, or maybe raise your voice. Hey, Billy, no.
You and
Come
I
on.
have both been
Right.
there earlier in our career. We've
Absolutely.
had to be corrected on some things.
So if you've never done that, if you've been blessed to live in such a perfect place that all the guys are just great and nobody ever needs any direction, well, that's wonderful. But you're probably one of the rare birds. Most of us, and I've worked
you're missing something.
in great places, or your eyes are closed and you're not looking at the wrong place, But everybody experiences it, and the more you experience it, and the more you practice it, and the more relaxed you are at doing it, the more effective it is, and the easier it is to get done. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a lifelong situation. You can correct. I corrected a couple of firefighters in different times in my career that needed a little bit of a high tone discussion in the office. A couple of them. And I'll tell you what, some of those men turned out to be some of my best, sharpest, most effective firefighters that once or twice early in our relationship, I had to raise my voice at them and say, hey, that's not what we're doing, Doug. That's not what we're doing. Here's what we're going to do. And after our little discussion in the office, we ended up practically hugging each other, saying, okay, good. I'm glad we saw eye to eye on this.
And they also knew that you didn't hold grudges.
Oh.
Because, how many places it's like, well, they're going to hold this over my head for 20 years, or they're going to remind me 5 years from now, well, you know what? I don't want you going back and doing that. I'm a big believer in once you've corrected an issue, once you've changed the behavior, once somebody has said, look, this is my bad, tell me what it has to have, whatever. Once it's all done, let's say even a suspension. I remember a particular incident. One of my favorite captains, Captain Randy Cade, and Randy has told me over and over again, please use me as an example in class. Randy ended up as a captain, as an acting shift commander, took a pretty significant hit disciplinary-wise, a particular incident, and so on and so forth, and blah blah, and pretty serious. And his first day back to work, I remember walking across the floor and grabbing a cup of coffee and sitting with him, and it was his birthday. Wish him happy birthday, and we're sitting at the kitchen table talking, and yucking it up and all this, and the phone lines were burning. Guys were like, I just got there, I've been there a few months. They're like, holy crap, Lasky's here talking to Captain Cade. And there's no yell, there's no stuff, and they're actually laughing and smiling. And Chief patted Randy in the back, and they're talking about this and talking about that. It's like that stuff never happened.
Yeah, it's like called adult behavior.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, you know what? It's over with. I mean, really? So I guess I missed that leadership book. Discipline through sentencing.
Last forever. Right. Yeah. Hate them forever.
Discipline through sentencing. So you know what? If you screw up, I thank God every day that people that had to correct me for Rick Lasky doing stupid stuff didn't hold that over my head my whole career. Came back the next door,
like you said, with a cup of coffee or an invite for a drill. Come on over, Cap. And you're like, oh, this is the guy that I thought was going to, push me up the stairs at the firehouse.
Like your guy. Show me the effort that this ain't going to happen again, and it's done. It's done. It's over. And sometimes you have to tell guys will come in, you know what, Chief Salka, you got a second? Yeah, what's up, LT? Look, I just want to apologize again for what happened. I appreciate the apology, Tommy, but
it's over.
It's gone, buddy.
That's right.
And and I used to think, really, your apologies again with that? You know what? Then I started thinking about, I'm going, most of the guys that do that, they're so disappointed in themselves that they feel they let you down. They're not mad that you had to counsel them, give them a what for or whatever. They're like, like me. I used to tell you, I know you were the same way. Oh God, all the money I worked to put in the bank with the lieutenant.
I can't believe I did that.
I just took a withdrawal, and I'm like, we talked about in class. It's like running up as a kid the down escalator. You're running up the down escalator. You stop for a second, you lose like 5 steps. You run back. I'm like, oh God, I was so mad at myself because I'm like, I've worked so hard to be like one of his favorite firefighters and to kick ass around here, and I screwed it up for a moment. And so I admire that about a lot of the guys that are so worried that they thought they, that they come back, but then like you said, like, all right, it's over, man.
And the lesson is nobody's exempt. None of us is exempt. Some of your greatest mentors, some of the people that I love the best, guys like I talk about Joe Callan, Deputy Chief Borough Commander when he retired, Tom Kennedy and Tommy Brennan, some of the guys that are our absolute idols from my job and your job and elsewhere. When they were young firefighters, when they were young officers, they misstepped. They made errors. They made mistakes. They had to be corrected by the folks that were a step ahead of them. The era ahead of them, just like we were. And it'll continue forever. Nobody's exempt. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. And the sooner and the earlier we're able to jump on them, we're able to handle them in a professional manner. Then we can correct people's behaviors or the beginnings of bad behaviors even. And you know what? And then everything just moves right along, and we keep.
And there's some guys, John, right, exactly. And there's some guys that do stuff. There is no counseling. It's so serious that, look, all right, get everybody involved here because you blew this. Like
commit a crime or rob a bank or something. We had a guy in the FDNY rob a bank on duty, robbed the bank on duty in uniform years and years ago now, 20 years ago. It was during my time on the job, and the guy eventually lost his job. But the point is, those are the rare exceptions. People robbing banks is a rare exception to start with in the whole
isn't
population.
It true? And I mentioned it at the very beginning. Disciplinary action, the punishment phase in the fire service, and I'll just say singularly in both the United States and Canada, isn't what you think it is because we're not firing. Could you imagine how many? You have to really think hard. You go to departments. When's the last time you fired somebody? Well, we never fired anybody. Well, guys have been scolded before. Guys have been written up, but we haven't fired a guy. Did we fire a guy? Right. Well, remember about 25 years ago, was that? It's not like, oh my God, we fired 7 guys last month. Now, you know what? Hey, I'll just pick on your department. 11,500 uniformed guys on the fire side, a couple thousand more with EMS. You can't have that many people and not have somebody err in judgment, make a mistake. Right. And we've talked about that. And again, they did it to themselves. Nobody laid in the weeds and said, hey, let's wait and see if Lasky does this. Now we're working again trying to fix something, but that's so minuscule. It's just such a small amount. You said it early on. The majority of discipline, if you will, in the fire service is done through
small conversations, coaches and counseling. You're right.
And warnings and coupons, like you said, and just And
I'll tell you what, it brings up one more important fact that I think we need to mention before we wrap this up is that's why one of the pieces of advice that we give, and we don't give it because we invented it, we got it from other folks, is those of us that have to deliver coaching and counseling, those of us that have to deliver low-level, company-level disciplinary processes, you should never do that when you're still hyped up. You should never do it when you're still angry about whatever happened.
When you're still angry, right. And if what you're about to do when you're angry is going to make you feel...
If it's going to make you feel good, you should probably wait till tomorrow.
What they say, it's a millionaire, whatever, can I call a friend or whatever? Call a friend, call a mentor, right. Go for a walk.
So one thing you want to be real careful about is that you don't take any disciplinary action, make any comments, bring anybody in for an interview or a discussion about something they did wrong if you are still really angry about it, because that's going to taint it. It's going to taint maybe your reaction. Maybe you might even overdo it. And at the risk of overdoing it, you say, you know what, Billy, I'm just really angry about what just happened. You can head home for now, right now, from the volunteer fire department. We're going to finish the drill without you. Or if it's a paid job, you can say, Tommy, just go downstairs. We're getting off at 6 o'clock. We're back in on Wednesday. I'll talk to you on Wednesday about this. And you know what? You go home, you sleep a night or two, you wake up the next morning, and you say to yourself the next morning when you wake up, boy, am I glad I didn't deal with that yesterday with that young man at the firehouse. I can't wait to see him tomorrow when we both come back in, and I feel much more level-headed about that now. So that's just one of the little warnings for those of us that do actually deliver discipline.
Well, and that's one of the warnings, and that's a great one. I think one of the helpers is know your process. And we've said this. Most firefighters, the good firefighters, I mean good, meaning seasoned and been around for a while, they already know tactics and strategy. They already know how to cut people out of cars. They already know that stuff. So when they get promoted, they've got a real good tactics and strategy, cognitive base and experience stuff. What they don't really know as well probably is the disciplinary process, the promotional process, the career advancement processes, the mentoring, all the little things you have to know about dealing with people, which is our job. So I guess my point again is know your process. We've talked about it, if you have someone you think that's under the influence, drugs, alcohol, whatever. Drugs are even harder, all right, because you really can't smell sometimes. So most places have, well, you know what, you have to get another officer's opinion, and you two have to agree, and then you take to the next level, so on and so
Some of
forth.
the actions are pretty specific for stuff like that you really have to know them. You can't wing that.
Right, and you have to, and knowing your process, right, John? I mean, there's, like, guys will go, they'll think the coupons count. The Tommy, last time, I've already told you 5 times. 6th time, I'm starting to pay more. Well, those coupons don't come in, they don't exist. Where they exist is in your mind, because those are the coupons are the trigger for it's
advancing to the next
yes,
step.
that's right. It's like, otherwise you'd be hammering them right away.
But you're the only one that's measuring them. You're the only one that's counting them. You're the only one that knows you told him 3 times.
Right.
He knows it and you know it, but it doesn't matter that he knows it.
Exactly. When we talk about what we're talking about is the coupons is what's referred to technically as informal counseling.
Right.
All right. There's no paperwork. There's no nothing. The next step is formal counseling, where you actually have a piece of a form, and you sit down, you counsel a member, and you actually write it out or type it out, whatever you do, and you both you initial and he or she initials, and it goes in your supervised log, your file,
and for those departments that have that in their process, it's still low level, even though you're writing
right. It never that doesn't go your personal file. It stays with the company officer, and there's a date, and
then disappears.
If there's no other infractions,
right into the circular
12
file.
months, it gets
That's
shredded,
right.
it's gone. And then from there, the next one after formal counseling with
I've never been there, never made it past that.
Well, you guys will say the next one is an oral reminder or reprimand, but they're not an oral reminder, oral reprimand unless they're written. If you don't write them up, if you don't write the oral reprimand up and have them sign and you sign, then it's another coupon because there's no paperwork.
Right. And I would venture to say that most of the folks that are listening to this program tonight or today, whenever you're listening, probably have never gotten past the second step in disciplinary process.
We just said the majority.
Most of this is pretty abstract.
The fire service would disappear at workplace.
I can't think of too many guys or gals in the fire service that don't need a good little scowl or a good little frown or a good little discussion up in the office.
The look.
And boom.
Look.
Boy, are they on the straight and narrow, and like I said, they end up getting right to the top of your pile.
And most firefighters are like little golden retriever puppies, man.
Yeah, not kidding.
They just want to, I'm telling you, they're wonderful people. They just want to do a great job for you. They just want to do that. Know your process. Have a relationship with your personnel department, HR, or with whoever, or with a boss that understands it. So when you have questions, but never, one of our favorite quotes from Colin Powell, never walk
past the mistake.
Never walk past a mistake.
Handle all your stuff as local as you can, as low level as you can. If it happened in a firehouse, my advice to you is handle it in the firehouse.
That's it, baby. Hey, know your disciplinary process. That was a good topic.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for joining us on another episode of Old School. Tell your friends. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out when we post them. Until we talk to you again, we never end any of our episodes without the very important phrase, and that is never forgetting means never forgetting. Be careful. God bless you, and take care of yourself.